The Boys Season 5 is officially down to its final episode, and after everything that Episode 7 delivered, the heartbreak, the rage, the grief, one burning question is consuming every single fan right now. How does it all end? How do the boys finally bring down the most powerful being on the planet? Today at Cinemaverse Studio, we are diving deep into 4 complete theories about how the finale could play out. These are not simple predictions. These are fully built scenarios, each one grounded in everything the season has set up so far. So sit back, because this is gonna be a long one. Let us get into it. Theory 1. Soldier Boy takes his revenge. The first theory, and honestly one of the most poetic ways this show could conclude, is Soldier Boy breaking free from the cryo chamber and finishing what he started. Now think about where we left him. Homelander choked him out from behind, a cowardly, desperate act from a man who calls himself a god, and threw him back into the freezer simply because he could not handle being told he was not divine. Soldier Boy looked him dead in the eyes and said 3 words that Homelander could not recover from. And rather than face that rejection, Homelander imprisoned the one person whose opinion actually mattered to him. That is not the move of a god. That is the move of a frightened, broken child. So, here's how this theory plays out. In the chaos of the finale, whether through Butcher, Huey, or even an unexpected ally, the cryo chamber gets opened. Soldier Boy wakes up, and this time there is no hesitation, no complicated feelings about a son he never wanted. The emotional bridge between them has been completely burned. Homelander made that choice the moment he grabbed him from behind. What follows is a confrontation that the entire series has been quietly building toward since Soldier Boy was first introduced. 2 generations of Vought's greatest weapons, one of whom was never supposed to exist, facing each other with nothing left to lose.
The beauty of this ending is what it says thematically. Homelander was literally created from Soldier Boy's DNA, engineered in a lab, raised in isolation, and shaped into the perfect weapon. He is the direct consequence of everything Vought and everything Soldier Boy represented. So having Soldier Boy be the one to end him carries enormous symbolic weight. It would be the sins of the past destroying the monster those sins created. Soldier Boy is not a hero. He never was. But in this moment, doing the right thing for entirely selfish reasons, wounded pride, personal rejection, a rage that has nowhere else to go, he accidentally becomes the instrument of justice. That is very much in keeping with how The Boys has always handled morality. Nobody saves the world because they are good. They save it because they are human, which means they are complicated, broken, and driven by things they cannot always explain. The challenge this theory faces is the spin-off problem. The show has clearly been protecting Soldier Boy for Boys Mexico and Vought Rising, and killing him in the finale would close that door permanently. However, if the writers decide that serving the story matters more than serving the franchise, this ending would be one of the most satisfying conclusions the show could deliver.
Theory 2. Kimiko uses Soldier Boy's power with Sister Sage's help. The second theory is the one that feels most directly set up by Episode 7. And at Cinemaverse Studio, we think this has a genuinely strong case for being the direction the show is heading. Everything in that episode pointed toward Kimiko becoming the weapon. Frenchie gave his life to make it possible. The radiation process was completed. And the final image of Kimiko cradling Frenchie's body, devastated and furious, was the show telling us exactly what kind of energy she is carrying into the finale. Here is how this plays out. Sister Sage, who defected and helped Frenchie complete the replication process, now becomes the architect of the actual plan. Her intelligence is unmatched. She can calculate outcomes, anticipate Homelander's moves, and design a strategy that accounts for every variable. But she cannot do it alone, and more importantly, she cannot be the weapon herself. Kimiko can. With Soldier Boy's radiation power now replicated inside her, combined with her own self-healing ability that allowed her to survive the process in the first place, Kimiko becomes something entirely new, a being capable of stripping Compound V from Homelander's system and dismantling his biology from the inside out.
What makes this theory so emotionally compelling is the journey it represents for Kimiko specifically. She has spent the entire series being defined by what was done to her, the experiments, the violence, the loss of her voice, the loss of her brother, and now the loss of Frenchie. She has always been treated as a weapon by people who saw her as a tool, but in this finale, she chooses to be a weapon on her own terms, for her own reasons. That distinction changes everything. It transforms her from a victim of Vought's cruelty into the very force that dismantles its greatest creation. Frenchie told her she saved him. In the finale, she saves everyone. That is a full circle character arc that the show has been carefully building since the very beginning. Sister Sage's role in this scenario is equally important because her arc this season has been about what happens when the smartest person in the room stops being able to predict the one thing that cannot be calculated: love. Frenchie proved to her that love operates outside every model and every formula she has ever constructed. And now, working alongside the woman that love produced this weapon for, Sage gets to apply her genius to something genuinely worth fighting for. There is a redemption quality to her involvement here that feels earned rather than convenient. The emotional stakes of this ending are the highest of any theory on this list. Kimiko fighting with Frenchie's memory driving every step, channeling grief into purpose, and delivering the blow that finally brings Homelander down. That is the kind of ending that stays with an audience long after the credits roll.
Theory 3. Marie, the boys, and every ally unite to defeat Homelander together. The third theory is the largest in scale and the most ambitious in scope, and if the writers want to send the boys off with the kind of epic ensemble finale that honors every character who has been part of this journey, this is the road they take. This is the theory where nobody wins alone. This is the theory where the victory, if it comes, belongs to everyone. Here at Cinemaverse Studio, think about what this season has been quietly assembling. You have Butcher, still carrying Compound V in his system, walking a line between humanity and something darker. You have Huey, who has grown from a grieving boyfriend into someone who genuinely understands what this fight means. You have Starlight, who spent episode 7 being reminded that doing good in a world full of darkness is the hardest thing a person can choose. You have Mother's Milk, who stepped back from the edge this season and remembered who he actually is. And then you have Marie and Jordan, the Gen V characters who were brought back in episode 7 and given almost nothing to do, which, if the writers are thinking clearly, means they are being saved for something far more significant in the finale. The way this theory works is through coordination rather than individual heroics. Homelander, even with V1 running through him, cannot fight every threat simultaneously at full capacity. He is powerful beyond measure, but he is one being. If the plan involves enough moving pieces, Kimiko drawing his attention, Marie using her blood manipulation in ways that target him biologically, Jordan shifting between forms to exploit openings, Butcher hitting him from one direction while Starlight hits from another, the cumulative effect becomes something Homelander cannot simply outlast through brute force. Marie's power specifically is worth examining here, because her ability to manipulate blood at a molecular level has always carried implications that the show has never fully explored. What happens when she turns that ability against someone whose entire physical power derives from a compound in their bloodstream? That is not a question the show has ever directly answered, and a finale would be the perfect moment to find out. It would also give her Gen V storyline genuine payoff within the main series, validating everything that show built around her character rather than dismissing it, as the episode 7 cameo seemed to suggest. The thematic argument for this ending is the most straightforward of any theory. The Boys has always been a show about ordinary people, or at least people who never asked to be extraordinary. standing against power that seems completely unstoppable. A finale where that collective effort actually means something, where no single hero saves the day, but rather a group of deeply flawed, deeply human people bring down a tyrant together, would be the most honest conclusion the show could make. It would say that the antidote to unchecked power is not a more powerful individual. It is solidarity. It is people choosing each other over everything else.
Theory 4. Butcher takes Soldier Boy's power and kills them both. The fourth theory is the darkest, the most tragic, and at Cinemaverse Studio, we believe it might be the most true to what this show has always been at its core. If The Boys ends the way its entire 8-season journey has been pointing, it ends with Butcher making the choice he has always been moving toward, sacrificing everything, including himself, to finish the job. Here is the scenario. The plan falls apart. It always falls apart. Homelander is stronger than anticipated. Kimiko cannot get close enough. The coordinated attack begins to crumble, and for a moment it genuinely looks like it is over. In that moment, Butcher does what Butcher has always done. He finds a way that nobody else would consider, through a door nobody else would walk through, at a cost nobody else would agree to pay. Soldier Boy is still in the cryo chamber. The power that Kimiko now carries came from replicating his biology, but the original source is still frozen, still accessible, and Butcher knows it. If he can somehow absorb or channel Soldier Boy's power directly, whether through compound V interaction, through a process Sister Sage devises in a final desperate moment, or through physical contact during a moment of chaos, Butcher temporarily becomes something capable of matching Homelander blow for blow. Not for long. His body could never sustain it, but long enough.
The confrontation that follows is not a superhero battle. It is something far more personal. Butcher has been chasing Homelander since before this show began. Every person he has lost, Becca, Lenny, now Frenchie, is present in that fight. Every compromise he made, every line he crossed, every version of himself he left behind along the way, it all comes down to this single moment. And when it is over, both of them are gone. Butcher does not survive carrying that level of power, and he always knew he would not. That was never the point. The point was always making sure Homelander did not survive either. What makes this the most thematically devastating ending is what it says about Butcher's entire arc. He has spent 5 seasons being told he is just as bad as the thing he is fighting. He has been compared to Homelander, to Kessler, to every monster he ever despised, and in the end, maybe the only way to finally win is to embrace that darkness completely. Not because it makes him right, but because nobody else can carry it. He dies not as a hero, but as a man who ran out of other options and refused to let anyone else pay the price. There is something both deeply sad and deeply honorable about that, and it is completely in character for who Butcher has always been. Huey, Starlight, Mother's Milk, Kimiko, they all survive. They build whatever comes next, and somewhere in that future, the memory of a man who was never easy to love, but always impossible to ignore, is the quiet foundation everything else rests on.
So there you have it. 4 theories, 4 possible endings, 4 completely different versions of how The Boys could close the book on one of the most ambitious superhero stories ever told on television. At Cinemaverse Studio, if we had to rank them, Theory 2 feels most directly set up by the season's storytelling. Theory 4 feels most true to the show's soul. Theory 1 would be the most poetic, and Theory 3 would be the most emotionally rewarding for long-term fans. But honestly, the best ending might borrow from all 4. A coordinated assault, Kimiko at its center, Soldier Boy involved in ways the audience does not see coming, and Butcher making a final choice that costs him everything. That is the finale this show deserves. Whether it actually delivers is a conversation we will be having very soon right here on Cinemaverse Studio. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss that breakdown the moment the finale drops. Until then, what is your theory? Drop it in the comments below.